The ruins lie silent beneath the setting sun, their jagged outlines etched in ochre against a fading sky. You stand at the edge of what was once a mighty ziggurat, now nothing more than eroded stone and scattered bricks, half swallowed by sand and time. The air is dry and heavy, thick with stories that haven't been told for millennia. You run your fingers across the ancient surface, each groove, each crack feels like a whisper from another world. Beneath your feet, forgotten foundations stretch in every direction, buried beneath layers of earth, secrets locked away beneath centuries of silence. And still, they wait to be remembered. So before you lay down comfortably, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. Then, something shifts. A breeze brushes your skin and suddenly you're not in the present anymore. The air changes. The skyline fills with low, sun-baked structures, smoke curling gently from hearths. You're in a world before maps, before nations, before time had a name. You're in the cradle of civilization. Welcome to Mesopotamia. The earth here is cracked but fertile, shaped by the rivers Tigris and Euphrates that snake across the land like restless spirits. You watch figures in loose, linen garments moving across the fields, tending crops, guiding livestock, building shelters from reeds and mud. This is not just survival, this is adaptation. People here have stopped roaming. They've begun to stay. For thousands of years, humanity wandered. Small tribes chasing herds, gathering fruits, never staying long in one place. But now, something is changing. You see it in their eyes. A sense of permanence. Of place. This land offers more than food, it offers rhythm, seasons, the promise of tomorrow. These people, without knowing it, are laying the first bricks of what will become cities. Their homes are simple at first. Domed huts built from bundled reeds, packed with mud and supported by wooden poles. But these structures do something revolutionary, they endure. Families return to the same places, adding walls, shaping pathways between homes. The ground hardens with daily foot traffic. A settlement begins to emerge, disorganized but alive. With each passing season, the land becomes more structured. Water is diverted using ditches and channels. Irrigation allows them to grow more food than they can eat, and that excess changes everything. For the first time, not everyone needs to hunt or harvest. You see potters, basket weavers, toolmakers. Specialization is born. And with specialization comes organization. A man stands at the edge of the fields, recording who planted what, who stored how much grain. His notched sticks and carved tokens are crude, but they are meaningful. These are the earliest efforts to track wealth, to distribute resources, to settle disputes. You're watching the glimmer of bureaucracy take shape. Among the people, some stand apart, not by force, but by influence. Elders who speak with experience, who interpret the signs of nature, who remember the old stories. And near them, a place is built, not a home, but something different. A raised platform. A place of gathering. A proto-temple. It becomes the spiritual heart of the settlement, drawing people together not just by need, but by belief. Historians still argue about the order of things. Did religion lead to political power, or did emerging elites create temples to justify their control? Some suggest cities formed around sacred sites, others claim trade and defense came first. But standing here, it's clear, everything is intertwined. Faith, food, and leadership grow together like roots beneath the soil. At night, the settlement glows with firelight. You hear laughter, songs carried over the reeds, and the occasional cry of a newborn. These people don't know they are pioneers. They don't call this place a city. But that's what it is becoming. With every sunrise, the lines between nature and society blur just a little more. You lie beneath the stars, the same ones they watched, and it dawns on you, cities don't just rise from stone and mortar. They rise from intent, from the human desire to belong, to build, to believe in something bigger than themselves. The first city is not yet named, but it breathes. It pulses. It dreams. You rise with the morning mist, cool and fragrant along the edges of a wide, slow-moving river. The landscape stretches before you, a flat expanse of shimmering reeds, damp soil, and distant birdsong. This is where it begins, not in stone or iron, but in water. The Tigris and Euphrates, twin lifelines of Mesopotamia, wind through the land like veins, delivering both nourishment and danger. At first glance, the rivers appear serene. But as you walk along their banks, you begin to understand their power. They flood without warning, shifting course, leaving silt that can bless or bury. Still, people stay. They learn. They adapt. The rivers, with all their unpredictability, offer something unmatched: fertility. Every spring, the floodwaters retreat and leave behind rich, black soil, perfect for farming. And farming changes everything. You watch as families dig narrow canals from the river toward their fields. Children run through the water, while elders pile stones to guide the flow. Irrigation is still crude, hand-dug trenches, lifted with leather buckets, but it works. Crops thrive: barley, wheat, lentils, onions, garlic. The harvest feeds more than just mouths, it feeds ideas. For the first time, humans are producing more than they consume. You see baskets brimming with grain, stored in clay pots and reed silos. The village has surplus. That surplus gives rise to choice. Now, someone can devote their time not to gathering food, but to crafting tools, or building shelters, or watching the stars. With that choice comes exchange. You witness early trade: goats traded for grain, flint blades swapped for cloth. And where trade exists, so too does negotiation, agreement, and memory. A man marks a series of pebbles and places them in a pouch, one for each goat owed. These are not coins, not yet, but they are numbers. The language of trade is beginning to form. As communities grow near the riverbanks, some become larger, more permanent. The layout shifts. Homes align in clusters. Footpaths appear. Fences are raised. In the center of one settlement, a communal oven bakes round loaves of flatbread. People gather to share, to speak, to plan. The river provides more than food, it offers connection. You follow small boats carved from hollowed logs as they drift down the current, carrying baskets of dates and bundles of wool to neighboring villages. Over time, the boats become more sophisticated, with woven sails and wooden rudders. Trade expands. Knowledge travels with it. Rivers also define territory. And where territory is defined, conflict follows. You see two families argue over access to a shared canal. Raised voices, tense stares. Eventually, a council is formed, elders who mediate, set rules, assign rights. This is not law as you know it, but it's a start. The seeds of governance are being sown. Historians still debate how quickly this transformation occurred. Some argue it took centuries of trial and error, with entire villages failing before others succeeded. Others believe that environmental stress, the cycles of drought and flood, forced rapid innovation. Whatever the pace, the result is clear: along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, society is reorganizing itself. You feel the shift under your feet. This is no longer a band of foragers, it is a web of interdependence. Each action, each task, supports the whole. Children fetch water while adults grind grain. Hunters return not just for their own families, but for the community. You're watching the first expressions of civic life unfold. There's a growing awareness of time, too. You listen as a father teaches his son how to read the seasons by the river's level, the bird migrations, the angle of the sun. The concept of a future is dawning, next season, next year. This awareness shapes rituals. Offerings are left at the riverbank. Songs are sung to honor the waters. The river becomes not just a provider, but a sacred being. At night, you sit by a fire and listen to a story passed down through generations, a tale of a time before the rivers, when people wandered and starved, until the gods gave them the land between two waters. Whether myth or memory, the story binds them. It gives purpose. It gives place. From this convergence of water and will, the first cities will rise. You sense it in the rhythm of the days, the hum of cooperation, the quiet planning of structures yet to come. These people do not yet know they are building history, but they are. With every crop planted, every canal dug, every boat launched, they take one step closer to becoming something new. You look once more at the rivers, gleaming in the moonlight. They move forward always, never backward. And so do the people beside them. Your feet sink slightly into the soft earth as you approach the outskirts of a growing settlement. It feels different here, less wild, more intentional. You see long, low buildings made from something unfamiliar at first glance, sun-dried mud bricks. Rows upon rows of rectangular structures, stacked with uncanny precision. This is no coincidence. This is invention. This is the mud brick revolution. You crouch beside a woman as she mixes straw with wet mud, packing it into a simple wooden mold. She lifts the frame and reveals a soft brick, ready to dry in the sun. All around you, hundreds more lie baking on the ground in neat grids, waiting to harden. With this humble material, humans learn to shape the earth itself into something that endures. Before mud brick, the world was fleeting. Reeds rotted. Tents collapsed. Huts washed away in storms. But mud bricks stay. They stack. They protect. They allow homes to rise higher, broader, closer together. You wander through narrow passageways formed by brick walls, and you realize, this is permanence. The human footprint is no longer erased by every season. The buildings are simple but functional, square rooms, low ceilings, niches in the walls for tools and lamps. Flat roofs supported by wooden beams serve as sleeping areas or places to dry food. Some homes are connected, forming courtyard clusters for extended families. The village becomes a labyrinth of familiarity, safe, warm, alive. Soon, these bricks are used for more than homes. You watch the construction of a rectangular hall, larger than anything else around it. It's a shared space, maybe a shrine, maybe a meeting place, maybe both. Its size and placement say something new, that some things are meant for the many, not the few. You notice signs of hierarchy. Some homes are wider, with extra rooms and raised platforms. A family with more livestock stores their goods behind thicker walls. A local leader's house includes a secondary entrance and a private enclosure. Inequality has found its roots in baked earth. With bricks come boundaries. You see the first hints of neighborhoods, of divisions within the community. Not everyone is equal anymore. Some people own more. Some live closer to the center. Some are pushed to the edge. Historians still debate whether the mud brick revolution led to cities, or whether cities created the need for better building materials. Some believe bricks symbolized a psychological shift, from temporary to eternal. Others argue it was purely practical, the logical answer to a wet and windy climate. But here, walking these walls, you feel the truth lies somewhere in between. Historians still debate whether the mudbrick revolution led to cities, or whether cities created the need for better building materials. Some believe bricks symbolized a psychological shift, from temporary to eternal. Others argue it was purely practical, the logical answer to a wet and windy climate. But here, walking these walls, you feel the truth lies somewhere in between. You look up to see a child chasing a chicken across a rooftop. The buildings are so close, their roofs nearly touch. People hop from one to the next with ease. Over time, rooftops become a kind of elevated street, a quiet passage above the city, shared by cats, children, and stargazers. The mud brick allows for decoration, too. Some homes are painted with white lime or red ochre. Others have carvings pressed into the bricks while they're still wet, swirls, dots, symbols. These markings may not be writing, but they speak. They mark identity, territory, pride. But mud brick has its flaws. It crumbles under heavy rain. It must be maintained constantly. Whole sections of wall are rebuilt each season. Still, the people accept the burden. Rebuilding becomes tradition. Maintenance becomes ritual. The city becomes not a static place, but a living thing, constantly in motion. You join a group of men as they rebuild a collapsed granary. They pass bricks hand to hand in a rhythm that feels almost musical. Children bring water. Women bring straw. There's no blueprint, no overseer, yet the work moves smoothly. Generations of knowledge flow silently between them. The settlement expands. New homes sprout along the periphery, and the older ones in the center become foundations for layers above. You stand atop one of the highest rooftops and look out. The horizon is dotted with smoke and silhouettes. This is no longer a village. It is a town. And it will not be the last. With every brick placed, with every wall raised, humans inch closer to something unprecedented, the idea of civilization. Not a place where everyone is equal or safe, but a place where ideas take root, where people cluster not for survival alone, but for belonging. In time, these towns will grow into cities. Their bricks will support temples, palaces, walls tall enough to intimidate and thick enough to defend. But for now, it begins here. In mud. In straw. In human hands. The sun beats down on a flat, open plain as you follow a winding trail of footprints across hardened earth. In the distance, a cluster of buildings emerges, low and compact, rising from the soil like a mirage. But as you approach, the structures become more defined, walls wrapped in thick layers of sun-baked mud brick, doors carefully framed with polished timber. You've arrived at Eridu, a place many will one day call the first city. There's a quiet energy here, not of crowds or chaos, but of purpose. You hear the scrape of tools, the murmur of voices, the rhythmic splash of water being drawn from wells. The settlement is modest by modern standards, but unmistakably complex. Paths are worn smooth from regular use. Homes are laid out deliberately, some clustered near a central building unlike any you've seen before. At the heart of Eridu stands a temple. It's not enormous, but it dominates the space around it. Built on a raised platform of mud brick, with steps leading to a wide entrance, the structure signals something new, an idea that space can be sacred. You cross the threshold and feel the cool shade inside. The air is heavy with incense. Carved objects line the walls, idols, vessels, offerings. A priest tends to a fire in a shallow basin, whispering something you don't understand. This temple is the axis of the city. It's not just where people pray, it's where decisions are made, where grain is counted, where disputes are quietly resolved. You sit in a corner and observe. A group arrives with baskets of barley and fish. They bow slightly, speak to the priest, and leave empty-handed. The offering is not payment, not entirely. It's a recognition that this place holds more than just bricks, it holds meaning. Outside, people go about their tasks. A woman shapes clay jars near the water's edge. A man repairs a fishing net. Children chase one another through alleys that twist between the homes. Life here moves slowly, but not without structure. Eridu is evolving. You soon realize something curious. Not everyone in the city seems equal. Some houses are larger, with painted walls and thicker doors. Certain families live closer to the temple, while others dwell along the edge. There's no formal government, yet. But there's hierarchy, and everyone seems to know their place within it. Historians still argue whether Eridu was truly the first city. Some claim it was merely a ceremonial center, a cluster of religious buildings surrounded by seasonal housing. Others point to its deep archaeological layers, structures built atop older structures, temples rebuilt again and again, as evidence of true urban continuity. But whatever the label, Eridu represents something undeniable. The moment when place becomes legacy, the temple grows with time. Each generation adds a new layer, a new room, a new platform. You watch the process, bricks laid over old ones, altars raised higher. The city grows around the temple, spiraling outward. Trade paths widen. New homes emerge. The ziggurat. That step tower of worship, takes shape here in its earliest form. People begin to look up as much as they look forward. As Eridu expands, so too does its influence. You see travelers arrive with exotic goods, shells from the Gulf, obsidian from Anatolia, bright-colored textiles woven far upriver. These exchanges don't just bring objects, they bring stories, ideas, glimpses of worlds beyond the horizon. Eridu, once a cluster of huts beside a stream, now becomes a node in a growing web of human connection. You walk to the edge of the settlement and look back. From this distance, the city seems almost sculpted, rising gently from the earth like a thought made solid. Smoke trails rise from chimneys. Goats bleat. A drum echoes faintly from the temple. It feels alive. And it is. In the evening, the priest returns to the temple's roof. He watches the stars with quiet reverence. Patterns in the sky are noted, recorded in memory. The heavens are not yet mapped, but already they guide. Time here is marked not by hours, but by rituals, planting, harvest, floods, stars. Even now, the city seems aware of its fragility. Floods threaten. Drought looms. Walls need constant repair. But the people endure. They continue building, praying, planning. A dream is taking root, not just of survival, but of civilization, and so you remain a while longer in Eridu, the city with no written name yet etched into the memory of humankind. You walk its alleys, touch its walls, and listen to the first heartbeat of urban life. You awaken to the steady hum of activity, footsteps, chatter, the clang of stone tools. The city stirs before dawn, and you follow the early risers as they carry baskets of grain toward the rising bulk of the temple. This morning ritual is no simple offering. It is the engine of the city's survival. You are witnessing the pulse of an organized economy, beating from the heart of Eridu and spreading outward. Inside the temple's cool chambers, scribes sit cross-legged beside woven baskets, counting, weighing, recording. Clay tokens are pressed into tablets, smoothed by careful fingers. These scribes are not priests, not yet officials, but they are essential. They record what has been given, how much remains, and who it belongs to. Grain, after all, is power. And here, in this sacred space, it is centralized, stored, and distributed with quiet precision. People arrive in waves, a fisherman with dried fish, a farmer with barley, a shepherd with wool. Each gives a portion of their goods, not just as a tithe to the gods, but as part of a system of exchange. You hear no shouting, no bartering. There is order here. What is given to the temple returns to the people, during lean harvests, before planting, after a storm. It's a sacred storehouse, but also a lifeline. This system of redistribution transforms the city. Those who manage the surplus gain influence. You notice the temple staff no longer live in modest homes, they occupy larger dwellings near the central plaza. Their clothing is finer, their meals more varied. Hierarchy begins to harden. The temple, once a place of prayer, becomes the seat of economic control. Historians still debate the origin of temple economies. Some argue they emerged out of religious necessity, to ensure offerings were properly received and used. Others suggest they were a response to agricultural complexity, a way to stabilize unpredictable food production. A few claim it was a strategy for early elites to justify power through divine association. The truth likely lies in the overlap. Belief and bureaucracy grow side by side. Outside the temple, the city thrives. You walk among workers crafting pottery, shaping bronze tools, spinning wool into cloth. These are not hobbies, they are professions. Specialization has flourished, thanks to the assurance that food will be shared. A potter doesn't need to grow barley. A weaver doesn't need to fish. The temple economy allows skill to blossom. You visit a craftsman's home and marvel at shelves of intricately shaped vases. His hands are stained with red slip and ash. Nearby, his wife counts coils of dyed yarn, preparing them for the market. Their children play in the doorway, stamping patterns into wet clay for fun. You see in their faces something new, the pride of identity. They are not just survivors. They are artisans. With greater production comes greater need for organization. The temple sends emissaries to inspect fields, check weights, and resolve disputes. A narrow class of administrators begins to form, men who do not sow or reap but track and manage. Their knowledge becomes invaluable. Their records shape policy. They are the quiet architects of the city's future. Still, the temple's influence is not without resistance. You hear whispered frustrations among farmers. Grain quotas are rising. Surpluses vanish quickly. Some believe the gods are demanding more, others suspect those in power are hoarding. The system, for all its benefits, is fragile. It depends on fairness. On trust. As you walk the markets at midday, the aroma of roasting lentils and fresh bread fills the air. Traders arrive from nearby towns, bringing copper tools, semi-precious stones, dried herbs. Goods are not just consumed, they're displayed. Social status begins to shape behavior. Some wear jewelry crafted from imported shells. Others carry finely polished walking sticks. Prestige becomes visible. The temple continues to adapt. What was once a humble shrine now looms over the plaza, its foundation rebuilt several times. Stairs lead upward in a spiral, flanked by carvings of deities with eagle wings and lion's feet. You ascend in silence, pausing to gaze across the rooftops. The city sprawls beneath you in every direction, homes, workshops, gardens, and behind them all, the silver thread of the river winding toward the horizon. You realize something profound. This place runs on more than faith. It runs on record keeping, on grain, on labor, on systems designed to outlive individuals. The temple is not a symbol of God alone, it is the city's brain and stomach, its ledger and granary. And its reach is growing. As the sun dips low, you descend once more, passing temple workers carrying baskets of newly counted goods. You follow them to the storage rooms, long, narrow chambers lined with clay jars sealed with reed stoppers. The cool, dark air smells faintly of dust and grain. It is quiet here, and you understand why. This is where the city breathes. Where the future is kept. Outside, night falls over Eridu. Fires flicker in courtyards. Laughter drifts through open windows. You stand beneath the stars and reflect on what you've seen. A city is more than walls and roofs, it is shared belief, shared labor, and above all, shared trust. The morning light filters through smoke and dust as you step into a small chamber carved deep into the temple complex. A man sits cross-legged before a low table, hunched over a slab of clay. In his hand is a sharpened reed, and with it, he presses delicate wedge-shaped marks into the damp surface. It's mesmerizing to watch, each sign purposeful, rhythmic, almost like a dance between thought and symbol. You are witnessing the birth of writing. It begins simply. A jar of oil, a number of sheep, a measure of grain. Marks to track goods moving in and out of the temple stores. But this is no longer just counting, it's recording. Remembering. Standardizing. The signs evolve from tokens to pictographs. From pictographs to cuneiform, pressed deeply into the clay in firm, confident strokes. Language is taking form, not through sound, but through shape. You kneel beside the scribe and examine the tablet. At first, it's incomprehensible. But patterns emerge. Columns. Numbers. Repeated signs. It's not meant to be beautiful, though it is. It's meant to be understood. The first texts are lists, harvests, debts, taxes, transactions. This is bureaucracy before poetry. But even that is revolutionary. Elsewhere in the city, others begin to learn this new script. You follow a group of young boys to a small courtyard school where they sit in rows, each with a lump of clay and a stylus. The teacher calls out words, symbols, and they scratch them carefully into their tablets. Their fingers are smeared with mud and ambition. These are not just children. They are future scribes, the guardians of memory. Historians still debate whether writing was invented for spiritual, political, or economic reasons. Some claim it began in temples to track offerings. Others believe it was a tool of trade, a way to keep contracts and count resources. A few argue it was driven by power, the need to preserve the words of kings. But as you watch these children labor over each stroke, it becomes clear that writing is all of those things. It is civilization turned inward. As the days pass, writing seeps into every corner of life. Clay tablets pile up in storerooms, rows of receipts, accounts, inventories. You see merchants carrying small tablets as they trade livestock or lease land. Marriage contracts are written and stored. Disputes are settled with evidence baked in clay, but writing is not confined to numbers. Gradually, you begin to hear stories. Myths passed down by voice are now etched into tablets, legends of gods, of the world's creation, of heroes who battled beasts and wandered distant lands. One name is whispered with reverence, Gilgamesh. His tale, still in fragments, stirs the hearts of the people. You sit one night by the light of an oil lamp as a scribe recites from a clay tablet, pausing between lines to interpret symbols. His voice echoes softly in the chamber, painting visions of distant times. You feel the city quiet around you. Writing has become not just a tool, but a mirror, showing people who they are. And who they hope to become. The power of the written word soon becomes political. Temple officials use tablets to control food distribution. Leaders proclaim their deeds in script, preserving their names beyond their lifetimes. Laws begin to take written form, though they are not yet universal. With every tablet baked and stored, the city gains a new kind of memory, one that cannot be argued, only interpreted. You return to the scribe's chamber and watch as he carefully seals a document with a carved cylinder seal. He rolls it across the soft clay, leaving behind a detailed impression: animals, divine figures, geometric shapes. These seals are not merely signatures. They are identity. Authority. Each one tells a story of lineage. Status, allegiance. In the markets, buyers demand tablets as proof of ownership. In the courts, judges examine them for evidence. Writing transforms justice itself. Without memory, there can be no fairness. And now, memory is recorded, not in the mind, but in clay. Still, writing remains a privilege. Few can read, fewer still can write. Scribes become a distinct class, their skills revered and protected. They are more than record keepers, they are the voices of gods, kings, and law. Through their hands, power is preserved and projected. You visit the temple once more, and in its darkest room you find shelves lined with tablets, stacked in orderly rows. Some crumble with age, others remain as sharp as the day they were pressed. This is an archive, not of stories alone, but of decisions, of judgments, of the very breath of the city. A library of lives. Outside, life continues. Children play beside the canals. Farmers return from the fields. But something has changed. The past is no longer a whisper carried by elders. It is fixed, preserved, unchanging. It can be studied. It can be taught. You leave the scribe's side with your fingers stained by clay and your thoughts filled with symbols. The world feels different now. More defined. More permanent. For in the quiet scratch of stylus on wet earth, humanity has found its voice. A hot wind rolls across the open plain as you follow a dusty road, well trodden by traders, herders, and pilgrims. The horizon wavers in the heat, and then, slowly, the city of Uruk emerges, massive, alive, and unlike anything you've seen before. Towers of baked brick stretch into the sky, gleaming beneath the sun. Gates wide enough for carts, walls high enough to challenge the sky. You've arrived not just at a city, but the city, Uruk, the first metropolis. As you pass through its outer walls, a sense of scale overwhelms you. People crowd the narrow streets, carrying baskets, leading donkeys, hawking fish and textiles. It's loud, it's fragrant, it's bursting with life. The air hums with human intention. Every corner is occupied, craftsmen shaping tools, bakers tending ovens, scribes scribbling names. The city is a body, and every inhabitant is an organ. Uruk is vast. Estimates vary, but over 40,000 people may live within its borders now, more than the entire populations of some ancient kingdoms. The streets wind in organic patterns, opening into crowded markets and quiet courtyards. You feel lost, yet exhilarated. You are walking through a turning point in history. Towering above the city is the Inanna district, a sacred complex dedicated to Inanna, goddess of love and war. Her temple is not a modest structure. It sprawls across a vast platform, its whitewashed walls gleaming. Its gates adorned with fierce lions and celestial symbols. Pilgrims bring offerings. Priests conduct rituals. The temple doesn't just represent the gods, it represents state power. In Uruk, the sacred and the secular merge. And yet, the real power flows through the streets. You step into the bustling market district, where goods from across Mesopotamia exchange hands. Baskets of dates, bolts of dyed wool, copper ingots, carved amulets. Trade is the lifeblood of Uruk. You hear accents from distant lands. See strangers dressed in unfamiliar garb. This is a crossroads, a melting pot of culture and commerce. Inside one of the many workshops, you watch a craftsman etch a cylinder seal with astonishing precision. The detail is exquisite, scenes of gods wrestling monsters, kings standing beneath stars. These aren't just decorations, they're identity, authorization, legacy. Each seal is a passport, a title deed. A signature pressed into history. Uruk's social structure is more complex than any before. Labor is divided not only by skill but by class. You observe slaves and servants moving between the homes of the elite, fetching water, preparing meals. Nearby, priests in elegant robes oversee temple activities, while administrators sit in offices filled with tablets and contracts. This is no longer just community, it's bureaucracy. Historians still debate whether Uruk was truly the world's first city in the modern sense. Some point to its population, its fortifications, its temple economy as proof. Others argue that earlier settlements like Eridu or Catalhoyuk deserve the title. But what no one disputes is Uruk's influence. It becomes the model. The blueprint for every city that follows. As you wander deeper into the city, you enter a large open courtyard filled with rows of students copying characters onto clay tablets. You recognize some of them, grain measurements, trade tallies, but others are different. Poetry. Hymns. Lists of divine names. The written word has exploded here. It's no longer just for utility. It's for culture. You sit beside a student who proudly shows you a line from a creation myth. He recites it softly, how the gods shaped humans from clay to serve divine needs. It's oddly fitting. In Uruk, humans have shaped clay to serve their own ambitions, and in doing so, they've become creators themselves. But not all is harmonious. You witness a dispute between two merchants. One accuses the other of underweighing his copper. Voices rise. A city official steps in, demands to see their tablets. A ruling is made. No weapons are drawn. No blood is spilled. The law, written and remembered, settles the matter. Civilization is not the absence of conflict, it's the management of it. At dusk, you climb the city's outer wall and look down on Uruk. Smoke curls from chimneys. The temple glows with torchlight. The streets still thrum with voices. You are struck by the sheer scale of it all, of how far humanity has come from scattered camps and riverbanks. Uruk is more than a city. It is a statement. It proclaims that people can build something greater than themselves, that belief and labor, writing and trade, faith and structure, can come together in one place. A place that lives, breathes, remembers. As night falls, you sit beneath the stars. Somewhere below, a scribe presses marks into clay. A woman sings a lullaby. A child falls asleep on a rooftop. And the city of Uruk, first among many, continues to dream. Morning mist still clings to the rooftops as you stand in the shadow of Uruk's great temple. The city stirs, not just with commerce or prayer, but with purpose. A procession winds through the streets, musicians play lyres, incense bearers fill the air with sweet smoke, and at its center walks a man cloaked in embroidered linen, his head crowned with a band of gold and lapis lazuli. The people kneel as he passes. You watch closely, and understand, this is not just a priest. This is a king. Power in Uruk is shifting. What was once shared among elders and temple priests now concentrates in the hands of one man, Lugal, the big man, chosen by the gods, or so it is claimed. You hear his name whispered with reverence. He commands the harvest. He commands the army. And most of all, he commands legitimacy. His palace, newly built near the temple complex, dwarfs even the ziggurat in size and opulence. You walk its outer courtyard, where guards stand in formation with polished bronze spears. The walls are painted with scenes of conquest and offerings, lions hunted, enemies bowed. Inside, scribes take dictation, emissaries deliver tribute, and artisans craft goods not for trade, but for glory. This is not merely administration. It's theater. A performance of power. The line between God and king begins to blur. You watch as a high priest proclaims the ruler as the chosen one, the earthly vessel of divine will. Statues are raised depicting the king alongside gods, eyes wide with eternal vision. Rituals reinforce the message: when the king speaks, the heavens listen, yet the king does not rule alone. He relies on the temple and its vast economic engine, the scribes and their clay records, the soldiers who keep order, the workers who build. His power is a delicate balance of fear, awe, and practical need. You feel the tension in every interaction: obedience, yes, but also the weight of expectation. Historians still debate how kingship emerged in Mesopotamia. Was it born out of military necessity, as rival cities fought and leaders rose to defend them? Or did it evolve naturally from temple authority, with priests gradually replaced by more assertive, secular figures? Perhaps both are true. But one thing is certain: once kingship appears, it spreads rapidly. Every city begins to claim a ruler, some just, others tyrannical, but all divinely endorsed. You hear the king speak from a raised platform in the public square. His voice is calm, measured, but firm. He announces new irrigation projects, the construction of city walls, the expansion of trade. He promises peace, protection, prosperity. The people cheer, but you notice the quiet scrutiny in some eyes. Loyalty is never absolute. In the days that follow, you walk with a group of soldiers along the city's edge. They train with discipline: archers, spearmen, slingers. Their armor is rudimentary but effective. War is no longer a matter of raiding, it's organized, strategic. The city-state must defend its borders, its water, its pride. Soon, a messenger arrives, dust-covered and breathless. Another city, not far upriver, has seized a disputed canal. The king calls his council. Maps are unfurled, alliances weighed, oaths recalled. You witness the machinery of diplomacy and threat grind into motion. War, once spontaneous, is now policy, and yet, there is peace within the city. Temples still hum with prayer. Markets bustle with trade. Children play in courtyards. The people live their lives, trusting that the king, both protector and priest, will hold the world together. His presence brings both reassurance and unease, for with divine authority comes divine consequence. A failed harvest, a flood, a war lost, these, too, are signs. The gods giveth, and the gods judge. One evening, you stand beside a giant statue of the king in the palace court. His features are idealized, strong, eternal, serene. Beside him, carved in stone, are images of captives bound and kneeling. It is not just a record. It is a message. Rule must be seen to be remembered. As torches are lit and the city glows under moonlight, you feel the full gravity of what's unfolding. This is no longer just a city of farmers and scribes. It is a kingdom. A world with a center, and a man who embodies it, and so the age of kings begins, woven into faith, sustained by force, and recorded forever in stone and clay. You wait before the sun, following the call of hammers and chisels echoing through Uruk's dusty streets. As you walk, the buildings change. Homes give way to workshops, low-roof structures thick with smoke and the scent of scorched earth. Here, in the belly of the city, something remarkable is happening. Men stand over glowing furnaces, their faces streaked with soot, their hands blackened by fire and ore. This is where stone meets flame. You've entered the age of bronze. At first, it seems like alchemy. Copper, dull and soft, is melted and mixed with a dark powder, tin. The result is something new, bronze, hard and sharp, glowing gold in the firelight. You watch as molten metal is poured into molds shaped like axes, sickles, fishhooks, and spearheads. When cooled and polished, the tools gleam with promise. This isn't just an innovation. It's a transformation. Outside the workshop, traders from distant lands arrive with precious tin ingots strapped to the backs of donkeys. Tin is rare here, mined from mountains hundreds of miles away. Its value rivals that of gold. Copper flows from the west, tin from the east, and here in Mesopotamia, they fuse into something far greater than the sum of their parts. Bronze changes everything. Fields are plowed faster. Trees are cut with less effort. Hunting becomes more efficient, and warfare becomes more deadly. You see soldiers training with bronze-tipped spears, their shields reinforced, their armor plates shining in the morning sun. The city-state, once defenseless, now bristles with weapons. You hold a bronze sickle in your hand. It's heavier than you expect, perfectly curved, perfectly balanced. One of the blacksmiths nods proudly and gestures to a nearby granary. Larger harvests, he explains, come with better tools. And better tools come with stronger cities. Historians often call this the Bronze Age, not simply for the material, but for the leap it represents. Metal gives people mastery over their environment. It builds empires. It forges identities. But some scholars argue the change was slower, more uneven. Stone tools remained in use for centuries. Bronze was costly, limited to the elite. True, but standing here, you see how quickly a new material becomes a new standard, at least for those in power. Metalworking, once a mystery, becomes a profession. Whole neighborhoods of smiths emerge, families who pass down their secrets like sacred knowledge. Smelting becomes a science. Alloys are refined, molds perfected. Even ornamentation changes, bracelets, pins, weapons, all cast from bronze and worn as signs of wealth and craft. You stroll through the artisan quarter. A sculptor carves an image of the king into a copper plate, hammering tiny dots to give it texture. A jeweler inlays bronze with lapis and shell. Metal is no longer just functional, it's symbolic. A weapon is a tool, yes, but also a message. A display. A legacy. With these advances, cities swell. Bronze increases food, strengthens armies, empowers elites. But it also creates dependency. Cities that lack copper or tin must trade, or take, what they need. You overhear a merchant boasting of a new expedition, a caravan set to travel west, guarded by soldiers, seeking mines beyond the mountains. Conflict becomes systematic. No longer chaotic raids, but campaigns, planned, supplied, and armed with bronze. You begin to understand that the very tools which feed people can also destroy them. Power sharpens with metal's edge, and yet, amid the clang and heat, life continues. Farmers line up to buy new tools. Children peek through doorways to glimpse the fire-lit wonder. The blacksmiths joke as they work, sweat dripping from their brows. They are creators, laboring not just for gold or glory, but for the city itself. At dusk, you sit by a canal and watch the reflection of bronze lamps flicker across the water. The city pulses with industry, its veins filled with trade, its bones strengthened by metal. You wonder what will come next, what new invention will reshape the world. But for now, this is the age of bronze, when humans learn to command the elements, to mold them in fire, and to wield the results not just as tools, but as symbols of who they were becoming. A dry wind curls over the city walls as you walk through Uruk's northern gate, following a caravan of heavily laden donkeys. Dust swirls around you, kicked up by hooves and sandals alike. The traders are alert but calm. They've made this journey many times. The lead donkey carries cloth. Another, copper ingots. A third carries strange purple dye in stopper jars, and tiny carved shells strung together with twine. These are not local goods. They are foreign. You're now stepping into Mesopotamia's far-reaching trade network, the invisible arteries of early civilization. Beyond the cities, the land stretches out in shades of ochre and beige. Sparse trees, snaking rivers, and endless sky. And yet, these paths are not empty. From every direction, mountain, desert, coast, trade routes converge like tributaries into a river of exchange. This is not only about goods. It's about ideas, languages, customs, and gods. You walk with the traders for days. They stop at way stations near wells or river crossings, welcomed by hosts offering bread and dates. In return, the travelers bring news, tools, fabrics. Everywhere you go, the name Uruk carries weight. It's not just a city, it's a hub. A symbol of culture, commerce, and control. Eventually, you reach Dilmun, a port city near the Persian Gulf. The air smells of salt and wet wood. Boats with curved prows bob gently in the harbor, loaded with fish, pearls, timber, and exotic resins. Trade here runs in both directions. Mesopotamian textiles and grain flow out, copper and luxury goods flow in. And with them, stories, prayers, rumors. You meet a merchant in a seaside tavern who speaks 3 languages and carries seals from at least 5 different cities. He shows you a tablet wrapped in cloth, bearing a trade contract from UR. It outlines a shipment of lapis lazuli from the mountains of what will one day be Afghanistan, bound for temple craftsmen in Europe. The journey is vast. The paperwork is meticulous. Civilization demands clarity, even across thousands of miles. Historians still puzzle over the full extent of Mesopotamian trade. Some argue that cities like Uruk and Lagash had direct contact with regions as far as the Indus Valley. Others believe goods moved hand to hand through long, indirect chains. But here, standing at the dock beside crates labeled in cuneiform, you sense the truth. Connections were real, vital, and constantly evolving. Back in Mesopotamia, you begin to notice foreign items embedded in daily life. A child wears a shell necklace from the Gulf. A high priest drinks from a carved obsidian cup. A bride is gifted a linen robe dyed deep red with imported pigments. These are not luxuries. They are statements. Proof that the city's arms reach beyond the horizon. Trade also reshapes religion. You attend a temple ceremony where new chants are recited, borrowed, perhaps, from distant priests. The gods themselves begin to blend. Foreign deities are adopted, adapted, renamed. A storm god from the mountains becomes a cousin to Enlil. A fertility goddess from the south is honored with flowers in Inanna's garden. Economy becomes diplomacy. You witness a king welcoming envoys from a neighboring city. They exchange gifts, tokens, promises of peace. Their seals are pressed onto clay side by side, agreement in symbolic form. And sometimes, trade prevents war. Better to exchange timber than blood. Better to share water than seize it, but trade brings danger. 2. Bandits roam the outer roads. Rival cities fight over river access. You hear of a canal sabotaged in the night, an act of economic sabotage, not military conquest. Control the water, and you control the crops. Control the trade routes, and you control prosperity itself. To respond, cities build alliances. Treaties are inscribed in stone, oaths sworn before gods. Marriage becomes a tool of strategy. A princess of Ur is wed to a merchant prince from the west. Their union is not romantic, it is economic. A guarantee of shared gain. You watch as ships unload under moonlight, guarded by armed watchmen. The goods are inventoried, taxed, and stored in massive warehouses near the city's edge. Trade is no longer a loose network of barterers, it is a machine, oiled by regulation and belief, powered by cooperation and trust. As the night deepens, you sit beside a merchant caravan preparing for its return journey. The camels are packed. The stars are charted. A map, carved into clay and wrapped in wax cloth, marks the rivers, shrines, and safe houses along the way. The world, once vast and unknowable, is becoming legible, line by line, road by road. In this web of movement, Mesopotamia is not a static land. It breathes. It pulses. It reaches outward and draws the world back in. And so, as the caravan disappears into the starlit desert, you realize that cities do not grow alone. They grow together. The sky is low and heavy with the promise of rain as you step onto the muddy banks of a narrow canal. Farmers move purposefully, their feet squelching in the damp soil, guiding water from the channel into long, furrowed fields of barley and flax. Small clay dikes are opened and closed with wooden levers. You watch water flow like a lifeline, bending to human will. This is more than farming, it is irrigation, the quiet engine of civilization. In Mesopotamia, rain alone cannot be trusted. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates is rich but thirsty, blessed with silt yet cursed by an erratic climate. You learn quickly, survival here depends on the mastery of water. And the people of the first cities have learned that mastery well. You walk along a narrow embankment, flanked by parallel canals that stretch for miles. The system is deliberate, wide feeder channels cut from the river, then subdivided into smaller branches, each leading to different fields. There are gates, basins, and reservoirs. You see men and women coordinating flow like a living map, shouting and signaling, their movements precise. In one village, a dispute arises. A farmer claims his neighbor diverted too much water upstream. They march to the city with their complaint, and a magistrate is called. The case is recorded on a clay tablet. Witnesses speak. Eventually, a verdict is issued, and a fine is paid, in barley. Justice, here, flows like water, essential, measured, and written in mud. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian irrigation was a grassroots effort or state-controlled. Some say small villages built and maintained their own systems. Others point to large-scale coordination as evidence of central planning by kings or temple administrators. The truth is layered, like the canals themselves, local efforts woven into grander visions. Irrigation reshapes time. The year is now divided by flood, planting, and harvest. People wake and sleep by the rhythm of canals, not clocks. Work crews are organized not by family, but by function: ditch diggers, sluice builders, water watchers. You observe an elder placing sticks in the ground to measure water levels. His knowledge isn't written, but it is precise. The water must flow just right, or the crops will rot, or worse, wither. As the fields swell with green, a new issue arises: salinization. Repeated flooding leaves behind salt in the soil. You kneel and taste a handful of earth, as farmers do, and wince at its bitterness. Without careful drainage, fertility fades. You overhear a priest lament the failing fields in the south. "We asked the gods for rain," he says. "Instead, they gave us dust." You understand now, prosperity is never permanent. In Uruk and other cities, irrigation is tied to politics. Access to water means access to wealth. Whole sections of society are organized around who controls the flow. You see kings depicted on carved steels digging canals with ceremonial spades. Not because they physically do it, but because they must be seen to provide life itself. Water rituals become part of religion. Inanna, goddess of fertility, is honored with water libations. Priests pour clear liquid over altars while chants rise into the air. In the temples, clay models of canals and rivers are used in ceremonies, prayers carried on imagined currents, asking the gods to spare the crops, to bring the flood gently, to favor their people over the neighboring city downriver. And always, there is tension. When water is scarce, cities argue. You hear of a fight between Lagash and Umma, two rival city-states. The dispute? A canal. It ends in blood. In retaliation, one city diverts a channel, leaving the other parched. War, once fought with swords, now begins with shovels. You travel with engineers who inspect the canals after a storm. They clear silt, patch embankments, redirect overflow. One of them draws a rough diagram in the dirt, a simple map of river, canal, and reservoir. Without this, he says, tapping the lines, there is no city. No king. No temple. Nothing. You believe him. Over time, irrigation enables specialization. With predictable food, fewer people need to farm. More can become potters, builders, scribes. Cities swell. But every brick, every seal, every song, all of it, still depends on these channels of clay and sweat and hope. One evening, you sit beside a still canal. Frogs chirp. The water reflects the last red sliver of sun. It's peaceful, almost sacred. And you realize, cities may rise with temples, writing, and walls, but they endure only with water. A dry heat settles across the land as you walk through the wide boulevards of Ur, another great city rising along the Euphrates. Though smaller than Uruk in scale, Ur's layout is deliberate, almost elegant. Streets curve with purpose. Homes are built of sun-dried brick, stacked tightly, their walls smoothed with plaster. But what catches your eye is something you've never seen before. The dead are not buried in the outskirts. They're honored in splendor, right here in the city itself. You follow a procession draped in white linen. Mourners hum low chants as they descend into a stone-lined pit. The body has been wrapped carefully, perfumed with oils, and laid atop a platform of reeds. Around it, small treasures are placed, clay vessels, carved figurines, tools of bronze and lapis. Death, here, is not an end. It's an elevation. At the edge of the city, you come upon a vast excavation, rows of carefully constructed tombs, some simple, others immense. In one, you peer into a chamber filled with gold jewelry, gaming boards, harps inlaid with shell and silver. And at the center lies a woman, possibly a queen, adorned as though she were still alive, surrounded by servants who did not survive her. It's as mesmerizing as it is unsettling. This is the royal cemetery of Ur, and its grandeur is staggering. You're told that these tombs were built generations ago, but they still stir awe among the living. They are not just graves. They are statements, of status, of power, of belief in an afterlife shaped like the world they left behind. Historians still debate the meaning of these burial practices. Some believe the wealth buried with the dead represents a belief in a literal continuation of earthly life, food, music, servants, tools for eternity. Others see it as political theater, a final performance that binds the loyalty of the living to the legacy of the deceased. A few suggest something darker, the presence of multiple bodies, guards, handmaidens, musicians, may hint at ritual sacrifice. You watch as a family prepares a modest burial for a potter. They place his tools beside him, a kiln stone, a carved bowl, a seal marked with his name. He wasn't wealthy, but his tomb is arranged with care. The dead, it seems, are never forgotten here, not even those without titles. As the city grows, so too does its relationship with death. Temples offer services to speak the names of the dead, to keep their memories alive. Priests conduct libations, pouring water into tiny clay pipes that lead to burial chambers below. You find one such pipe jutting from the ground, worn smooth by centuries of touch. A child drops a flower into it. No one speaks, but everyone watches. Funeral rites are accompanied by stories. You hear a priest recite the descent of Inanna, a myth in which the goddess travels to the underworld. She is stripped of her power, one layer at a time, and dies, only to return. The story is performed like theater, with masks and music, before crowds that sit in hushed silence. In this myth, death is not only feared, it is understood, negotiated, even challenged. You enter a home where a small shrine has been built in a corner. There's a clay image of a grandfather, a candle, and a bowl of grain. Ancestor worship is not widespread, but it exists, especially among families who believe that the dead still observe and influence the living. You ask the matron of the house why she leaves offerings. She simply says, "He still walks with us." Burial customs differ by class. The elite lie in stone tombs beneath the city. The poor are laid in reed mats near canals, or in simple pits along the edges of fields. Some are cremated, though rarely. A few are placed in large clay jars, curled like infants, returned to the earth as if reborn. Every method has meaning. In one quiet quarter of the city, you discover an entire street where homes have built tombs beneath the floors. You're invited inside by a family. They lift a heavy trapdoor and descend with oil lamps, showing you the resting places of 3 generations. The walls are lined with painted urns. Names are scratched into the brick. You feel a chill, not of fear, but of memory so concentrated that it thickens the air. And still, death is not separate from life. Children laugh as they play near the cemetery. Farmers till soil beside ancient graves. The boundary between the worlds is thin here. The dead do not frighten the living, they complete them. As the sun sets, you stand at the edge of one of UR's royal tombs. The light turns the golden artifacts to fire. You think of all that was built, all that was left behind, all the hands that shaped this place before returning to the soil. And you understand that cities are not just for the living. They are built with the dead in mind, with their memory, their mystery, and their promise. The morning hums with preparation. In UR and across the southern plains, men stack baskets of barley outside administrative buildings while women carry jugs of oil, bolts of wool, and bundles of dried reeds. You hear the rhythm of sandals on packed earth, and a murmur that grows louder with each passing hour. Today is tribute day, and though there are no parades, no cheering crowds, this is where the city's veins pull strongest. You're about to witness how the first taxes were collected, and how a society kept itself running. You follow a clerk, a thin, sharp-eyed man with a clay tablet tucked under one arm, into the heart of a storage complex. Inside, rows of low tables are manned by scribes with styluses at the ready. Behind them, clay jars and woven baskets are sorted by weight and purpose. You glance at one, 48 liters barley, Shulgi district. Another, 6 wool cloaks, family of Eridu, per allotment. Every item is recorded. Nothing is missed. This is not taxation as you might expect it. No coins, no paper. This is tribute in kind. People offer what they produce, and in turn, they gain protection. infrastructure, and the steady arm of law. You notice how calmly it unfolds. People grumble, but they comply. The system is ancient, yet it works. Once tallied, goods are stored in sealed rooms or redistributed immediately. Barley may go to feed temple workers. Wool may clothe soldiers. Clay pots are shipped upriver, filled with oil and destined for trade. The temple and the palace coordinate these flows like the twin chambers of a great heart. Historians still discuss whether these early systems were truly taxes or more like offerings. Some argue they were voluntary, a kind of sacred duty. Others see them as mandatory extractions by the powerful. The truth likely lies in between. Tribute is sacred, yes, but it is also enforced. To withhold it is to challenge the order of things. You meet a woman named Nanazu who spins thread for a living. She shows you a document baked in clay, a delivery record stamped with her seal. I give 10 skeins each moon, she says, and they repair the canal. Her tone is practical, not resentful. She sees the link. So do many others. Still, not everyone contributes equally. Elites often pay with prestige or influence. A noble family might provide laborers instead of grain. A priest might offer ritual services in exchange for exemption. And some bribes are whispered in alleyways, hidden in sealed jars marked for temple use. You walk through a neighborhood of laborers, where a street elder grumbles about increasing quotas. They take more each year, he says, but the irrigation ditch has been broken for 2 seasons. His bitterness simmers just below the surface. The city's strength depends on reciprocity. When that balance falters, resentment festers. In one storeroom, you examine tablets stacked like books. They're ledgers, long lists of who gave what, and when. You spot a mark beside one name, delinquent. The penalty? A deduction of future rations, or worse, public shaming in the marketplace. The system doesn't tolerate failure, especially when the city itself depends on regular supply. But this isn't just economics. Tribute supports festivals, temple repairs, relief during droughts. You attend a harvest celebration funded entirely by these collections. Musicians play flutes and drums, dancers in embroidered cloaks whirl beneath garlands of reeds. Children laugh, priests bless the grain, and for a moment, you see what all this bureaucracy sustains: joy, community, continuity. You sit beside an old man carving his seal into a small tablet. He pauses to look at you. This, he says, is how we remember. This is how we feed the future. He stamps the clay and hands it to a scribe. Somewhere, far away, a soldier will eat bread made from the grain he just documented. And yet, tribute isn't always peaceful. You hear of a village that refused delivery, citing poor crops. The palace sent soldiers. The tribute was taken by force. Resistance is rare, but when it comes, it is met with swift consequence. Order must be seen to hold, even if behind the curtain, it frays. As the day winds down, the storage rooms are full. Scribes stretch their backs. Guards seal the heavy wooden doors. The sun sinks behind the walls of UR, casting long shadows across the courtyard. And still, the system ticks, quiet, firm, relentless. You realize something profound. Cities are not sustained by monuments or kings alone. They live and breathe through systems. Through records and obligations. Through expectations written in clay. Tribute is not just what people give, it's what they believe in. That tomorrow, because they gave today, there will still be bread. Still be water. Still be peace. The city sleeps, but the ziggurat does not. Towering above the rooftops of UR, it rises like a mountain of brick and belief, tier upon tier, each smaller than the last, stacked like steps toward the heavens. You climb its broad, sloping ramp as dawn stains the horizon pink. The air is cool, dry, almost reverent. At the top, priests in linen robes scatter incense into the wind. Their voices rise in melodic prayer. Here, on this sacred platform, the sky feels closer. You've reached the summit of faith in early civilization. The ziggurat is not a temple, but a temple mount, a bridge between earth and the divine. The true temple, the cella, sits at its peak, a small, windowless chamber housing the god's presence. The stairs are not for public worship. They're for the priests, who carry offerings and petitions upward like sacred messengers. You watch them perform their duties with practiced grace, pouring water, lighting lamps, laying flat loaves of bread on polished altars. This is the house of Nana, the moon god, patron of Uar. His statue, cloaked in fine cloth and crowned with silver horns, stands within the cella. Only the highest priest may enter fully. Offerings are left at the threshold. No one questions this distance. It is the order of things. You sit at the edge of the terrace and gaze across the city. The ziggurat's height isn't just architectural, it's symbolic. In a flat landscape, to build upward is to assert presence, purpose, permanence. This isn't merely faith. It's geometry. Urban planning. Power made vertical. Historians still debate the exact rituals performed on ziggurats. Did priests sleep on the summit to receive divine dreams? Were sacrifices made under starlight to celestial deities? Some tablets hint at lunar ceremonies and astrological observations. Others describe purification rites and food offerings. But many agree, the ziggurat was not only a place of prayer, it was a calendar, a message board, a throne room in the sky. You descend slowly, observing the mural fragments on the lower walls, lions walking beside gods, kings pouring libations, heavenly stars surrounding temples. Every image reminds you, this structure is more than stone. It's a map of the cosmos, drawn in mudbrick. Back at ground level, you enter the outer temple courtyards. Pilgrims light small fires and whisper names into the flames. Others leave tokens, beads, broken tools, the first fruit of their harvest. Children learn to bow, to clap 3 times before stepping onto sacred ground. Religion isn't just a performance. It's a rhythm threaded into life itself. The temple complex is its own organism. You pass kitchens where offerings are cooked. Workshops where priestesses weave ceremonial garments. Scribes hunch over tablets, recording each visitor's donation. And somewhere behind closed doors, astronomer priests study the stars, seeking meaning in the movements of Venus and the moon. The gods are everywhere. In carved amulets, in household shrines, in lullabies and curses. You hear farmers chant to Ninurta for a good harvest. Sailors invoke Enki for safe passage. Lovers whisper to Inanna beneath the stars. Religion is not confined to temples. It walks in the streets. Historians still debate the exact rituals performed on ziggurats. Did priests sleep on the summit to receive divine dreams? Were sacrifices made under starlight to celestial deities? Some tablets hint at lunar ceremonies and astrological observations. Others describe purification rites and food offerings. But many agree, the ziggurat was not only a place of prayer, it was a calendar, a message board, a throne room in the sky. You descend slowly, observing the mural fragments on the lower walls, lions walking beside gods, kings pouring libations, heavenly stars surrounding temples. Every image reminds you, this structure is more than stone. It's a map of the cosmos, drawn in mudbrick. And yet, you sense change. A new kind of faith is emerging, not only in the gods, but in systems. In the certainty that canals will be repaired, that tribute will be collected, that contracts will be honored. You hear a merchant say, "The gods are wise, but a seal on a tablet, that's what feeds my children." It's not heresy. It's evolution. Still, when the moon rises, the city quiets. People turn their eyes upward. Lamps are extinguished one by one. In the ziggurat's shadow, even the boldest remember their place in the great chain of being. You feel it too, that sense of smallness wrapped in wonder. One night, you're invited to a secret rite in the temple courtyard. The priests light a fire from 7 kinds of wood. They chant the names of lost cities, of ancestors long gone. And then, from the shadows, a figure appears, a priestess clad in dark blue, her arms raised, her voice soft but commanding. She speaks not in words, but in rhythm. Her dance mimics the phases of the moon, the rising of the tides, the cycle of death and return. Everyone watches in silence. No one breathes. You leave the temple long after midnight, your thoughts heavy with symbols. In a world of shifting sands, the ziggurat stands unmoved. It reminds people that the world has order, even if that order must be built, one brick at a time. As dawn breaks once more, the city stirs. Water flows through the canals. Smoke rises from hearths. And high above, the priests of Nana lift their hands to the sky. You realize now, belief is not a structure. It's a practice. A promise renewed each day, in prayer and brick and breath. The clang of hammers echoes through a dusty courtyard as you step into a scribe's school in the heart of Nippur, a city famed not just for temples or kings, but for its knowledge. Here, the air is filled not with incense or smoke, but with the scratch of styluses against damp clay. Young boys sit cross-legged in rows, their brows furrowed in concentration as they copy the same symbols over and over. You crouch beside one and recognize the shape, a wedge, a line, a hook. Cuneiform writing, once used only for grain records and temple accounts, has now blossomed into an art, a science, and a way of understanding the world. You hold a fresh tablet in your hands, still warm from the sun. It's covered in signs that tell of rations distributed to laborers. But on another, you read a hymn. On a third, a legal case. Words, preserved in clay, outlast breath, storm, even memory. The Adaba, tablet house, is where scribes are trained. It's strict, competitive, even harsh. You watch a teacher correct a student by scraping off a mistake and making him redo the entire line. Precision matters. The wrong sign can change barley to battle, or turn a fine into a gift. This isn't just education, it's survival. Historians still debate the origins of writing in Mesopotamia. Was it a gradual evolution from counting tokens and pictographs, or a sudden innovation by temple accountants trying to keep up with surplus grain? Most agree that by 3200 BCE, writing had become indispensable. What began as marks on clay evolved into full sentences, then laws, myths, even personal letters. You meet an older scribe named Lugalkin. He speaks slowly, deliberately, as if each word deserves ceremony. The gods gave us language, he tells you, but we gave it shape. He shows you a lexicon tablet, lists of words grouped by category. Not for reading aloud, but for study, for memory. Writing has become its own form of thought, with writing comes bureaucracy. You visit a city office where scribes sit on low stools, taking complaints, contracts, inventories. One man argues over the sale of a donkey. Another brings a marriage contract for formal approval. Each transaction is sealed, stored, and archived. Cities may be built of brick, but they're run on clay, at the temple. Priests read from tablets etched generations ago. Rituals are preserved in detail, what to offer, what to chant, how many steps to circle the altar. Faith, once oral and shifting, now follows a written path. The gods have clerks now, but writing doesn't stay sacred. It becomes personal. You find a love letter, pressed into clay, never sent. A boy writes to his brother in another city, asking for help with a sick ox. A father leaves a will, naming his daughter as heir, an unusual, but not unheard of act. In these tablets, people speak across time. You sit in the school courtyard as students take turns reciting a tale, the story of Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata. It's filled with clever words, divine messages, trickery, and pride. As they speak, you notice something astonishing, the tale mentions writing itself. A king, unable to speak face to face with a rival, sends a message on a tablet. The audience gasps. This is not just a story. It's self-awareness. Civilization, reflecting on itself. Not all writing is noble. You visit the house of a merchant who keeps two sets of records, one for the officials, one for himself. Scribes can manipulate the truth as easily as preserve it. Literacy is power, and not everyone wields it equally. A misread symbol can doom a contract. A miswritten name can change a destiny, still, you see hope. A girl watches from behind a wall as her brother studies. Later, you find her tracing signs in the dust with a stick, copying what she saw. She has no stylus, no tablet, no teacher, but she learns. Writing, like water, seeks every crack through which it can flow. In the evening, you visit Nippur's great library, a stone room stacked with shelves of tablets wrapped in linen. They are categorized by subject: omens, law, medicine, prayers, mathematics. A scribe shows you a multiplication table. Another, a tablet describing the path of Venus. These aren't just records, they are knowledge. The foundation of science, of prediction, of reason, and yet, nothing here is cold or lifeless. Even the dullest grain list speaks of lives once lived, decisions once made. Clay holds memory with a humility no monument can match. As the stars emerge and the school falls quiet, you hold a fragment in your hand, a weathered shard from a broken tablet. The words are faint but still visible, may the scribes remember. The rest is gone, but that's the thing about writing. Even in pieces, it remembers more than silence ever could. The sun glints off the Euphrates as you float downstream in a long, narrow boat laden with sacks of barley and bundles of reeds. The oarsmen row with practiced ease, their rhythm set to a soft chant. Wind catches the square sail overhead, propelling you past thickets of date palms and clusters of mudbrick homes. This is how cities breathe, not just inward, but outward. You are now part of Mesopotamia's arterial lifeline. Its rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, are more than rivers, they are the spine of civilization. Without them, there is only desert. With them, there is movement, abundance, connection. As you drift past riverbanks teeming with life, buffalo drinking, women washing, children splashing, you realize something deeper. These waterways are not just borders. They are highways. You dock briefly at a river port outside Lagash. It's smaller than Uar or Uruk, but just as active. Merchants unload amphorae of wine and oil. Fishermen haul in nets glistening with carp and catfish. A scribe sits beneath a palm tree, recording everything with quiet authority. The city depends on this river traffic as much as it does on temples or fields. Later, you pass through marshland, where tall reeds sway like dancers in the wind. You meet a family living on a floating reed island. Their home is humble, but resourceful, bundled stalks woven into rafts, huts, even canoes. They offer you grilled fish and stories, of bird migrations, of crocodiles glimpsed at dusk, of spirits that dwell in the river's hidden places. Civilization may center in the cities, but its roots stretch far into these wild, wet edges. Historians still debate how much influence these waterways had on city placement, trade routes, and even social hierarchies. Some argue rivers determined everything, that the most powerful cities were simply the best situated along key bends and branches. Others believe human ingenuity overcame geography. But you can feel it here, with your fingers in the water. Without rivers, there would be no cities at all. At a bend in the river, your boat slows near the remains of a crumbled settlement, its mud brick walls softened by centuries of flood and drought. Once, this may have been a thriving village. Now it is reclaimed by reeds. The river gives, but it also takes. One season too many without silt or with too much salt, and even the sturdiest walls fall. You travel upstream now, where the water narrows and currents quicken. The oarsmen grow silent, focused. Here, trade slows. Only the most determined merchants brave these routes. Yet you see signs of life, goat herds leading flocks to drink, farmers collecting river mud to patch their fields. A small shrine clings to the rocks above a ford. Its altar painted with blue waves and white birds. You step ashore and leave a stone, as others have before you. The rivers are sacred. In the temples, Enki is honored as the god of fresh water and wisdom. You recall a hymn chanted in Ur, he brings the sweet water from the deep. The priests believe the rivers are fed not just by rain, but by the Apsu, the hidden, divine freshwater beneath the earth. When the rivers flood gently, it is a blessing. When they rage, it is punishment. One evening, as you drift beneath the stars, the river becomes glass. Frogs croak. The oarsmen murmur a river lullaby. You close your eyes and listen, not just to water, but to history. This same current flowed past Sumerian kings, past the feet of enslaved workers and wandering herders, past lovers meeting in secret and priests reading omens from fish, and in this moment, you understand, the river carries all of it. Not just goods, but memory. Not just water, but meaning. It is as much a storyteller as any scribe. Back in the city, you watch as canal water is siphoned into reservoirs. Workers move fast, it hasn't rained in weeks. The city's life depends on their timing. A mistake could mean rot or thirst. The rivers are generous, but they demand respect. You find yourself drawn again and again to the banks. Here, markets gather, lovers meet, elders reminisce. Rituals are performed, children are named beside the water, oaths are sworn with hands dipped in the current. Even the dead, sometimes, are returned to the river, ashes scattered, bodies floated out with offerings of dates and coins. As dawn breaks over the water once more, you step into a boat not as a passenger, but as a participant. You grip an oar. You join the chant. The river takes you, and you give yourself to it. For in Mesopotamia, to live is to move. And to move is to follow the water. A clang of bronze echoes through the alleyways as you turn a corner and step into a bustling courtyard. Here in Kish, the air is thick with the scent of smoke and molten metal. Craftsmen crouch beside glowing furnaces, hammering red-hot tools against stone anvils. Sparks dance in the air like fireflies. You've arrived in the beating heart of Mesopotamian craftsmanship, a world where tools are power, and artisans are the quiet architects of daily life. Bronze is the star here. A mixture of copper and tin, it's stronger than stone, more versatile than wood. You run your fingers over a finished blade, smooth, cool, and sharp. You watch a smith use clay molds to pour liquid metal, a process so exacting it feels more like magic than labor. His apprentices tend the fires and polish the cooled tools with sand and oil. Every piece is functional, but also beautiful. In another workshop nearby, a potter spins his wheel. His hands are caked with clay, yet they move with elegance, shaping a symmetrical jar in seconds. You marvel at the thinness of the walls, the precision of the handles. He bakes the pots in a dome-shaped kiln fueled by dried reeds. The finished pieces, some plain, others painted with swirling patterns, are stacked neatly along the wall, waiting for markets, temples, or distant caravans. Craftsmanship defines the city, but it also defines status. You pass weavers knotting wool into rugs dyed red, blue, and gold. You see lapidaries inlaying tiny bits of shell and semi-precious stone into seal pendants. A jeweler shows you a bracelet of gold twisted into the shape of a serpent. It's a gift for a high priestess. Every trade has its place, every product a purpose. Historians still debate whether Mesopotamian artisans worked in private workshops or under state or temple control. Some evidence suggests that temples regulated production, especially for luxury goods. Others point to family-run studios and markets teeming with independent merchants. What's certain is that craftspeople were essential, engineers of the material world. You peek into a stonemason's yard, where slabs of gypsum and diorite are carved into statues. Some are effigies of kings with broad chests and clasped hands, others of gods with wide eyes and flowing robes. A young sculptor explains how each line has meaning: the curve of the eyebrow, the length of the beard, the folds in the garment. These aren't just decorations. They are declarations of power, divinity, and order, and then, there are the seals. Tiny cylinders, carved with delicate scenes, lions chasing goats, gods offering blessings, feasts and battles captured in miniature. You watch as a merchant rolls one across wet clay, leaving behind a perfect image. A seal is more than identification. It is signature, art, and authority all in one. Even children participate in craft. In an open courtyard, they play with clay toys, small carts, animal figurines, even little houses. One boy proudly shows you a whistle shaped like a bird. You blow into it and laugh as it chirps. These aren't just playthings. They are echoes of the adult world, training for the hands that will one day build cities. In the markets, the fruits of craftsmanship are everywhere. Rows of copper tools, reed baskets, carved combs, glazed beads, leather sandals. You see an old woman trade a wool shawl for a jar of dates. A fisherman barters his catch for a new net. The economy here is driven by objects. Each tells a story of time, effort, and invention. Some items cross borders. You see a trader from Elam examining a Mesopotamian tablet box. Another from the Indus Valley offers beads in return for dyed textiles. Ideas move along with goods. A pot design from one region appears in another. A weapon style travels hundreds of miles. Culture is shaped in the forge as much as in the temple, but not all crafts are noble. You see a man selling weights and measures, some true, some deliberately false. A dispute erupts. The city official arrives, tests the stones, and confiscates the fakes. Integrity is vital. A dishonest scale can unravel trust across an entire economy. Law here is not abstract, it's enforced on the anvil. You meet a blind sculptor who runs his hands across a statue's face, feeling for symmetry. His apprentices do the cutting, but he approves the form. The gods speak through balance, he tells you. We just listen. You realize that craftsmanship is not just labor. It's philosophy. As evening falls, you return to the bronze workshop. The fires burn lower now, and the last blade of the day is quenched in a trough. The smith lifts it, inspects it, and hands it to a waiting soldier. No ceremony, no words, just a nod. One hand builds. Another defends. Together, they hold up the city. You walk away with the scent of metal and clay still in your hair. Everywhere you look, tools, homes, statues, boats, someone made this. Civilization doesn't just rise. It is crafted, one object at a time, by hands calloused not by war, but by creation. The morning buzz of the marketplace fades behind you as you step into a wide courtyard enclosed by high mud brick walls. In the center stands a man with a staff, his robe neatly pressed, his beard curled with precision. A pair of guards flank him, silent but alert. Before him, two men argue loudly, gesturing at a broken cart and a wounded donkey. This is not chaos. This is justice in motion. You're standing in the center of Mesopotamia's legal heart, the place where the rule of law takes shape, one case at a time. The judge, possibly a local official, perhaps even a royal appointee, listens, asks questions, inspects the cart, consults a scribe. Then, he points to a tablet inscribed with cuneiform. The scribe reads aloud a passage concerning compensation for property damage. The decision is swift. One man must pay 5 shekels of silver and provide feed for the injured animal. Both parties bow. The tablet is marked, the record sealed. Justice, delivered in clay, laws here are not hidden, they are public knowledge. In Babylon, you see them carved into black stone, the Code of Hammurabi, standing tall in a city square. The king's likeness looms at the top, his hand raised toward Shamash, the god of justice. Below, dozens of laws etched with care, rules for trade, marriage, injury, theft. You read them slowly. If a builder constructs a house and it collapses, he shall be put to death if it kills the owner. Harsh, yes, but clear. These laws are not suggestions. They are vows. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian laws were applied equally. Some say the codes reflect an ideal, not always followed. Others point to court records showing a surprising consistency across cases. Many agree, though class, gender, and status shaped outcomes, the existence of law itself was revolutionary. For the first time, people lived not under the whim of rulers, but under a written structure. You visit a house where a young woman is preparing for marriage. Her father presents a contract tablet to the groom's family. It outlines dowry items, inheritance rights, and household duties. A priest oversees the oath. The document is pressed with seals, baked, and filed at the temple. Even love has its laws here, codified, negotiated, binding. In another district, a man disputes a debt. He claims the repayment was made months ago, but he has no tablet to prove it. The creditor holds his own record, signed and sealed. The court rules in the creditor's favor. You realize how vital writing has become, not just for memory, but for truth. Law permeates every corner of city life. Builders work under contract. Farmers agree on land use boundaries. Merchants exchange goods by formal agreement. A canal worker shows you his rations tablet. It promises 1 measure of grain per day for 30 days, in exchange for labor. Everything is formalized. Everything has precedent. But law is more than punishment. It's protection. You meet a widow with no sons who retains rights to her late husband's land, thanks to a clause in their marriage contract. In the next neighborhood, a slave earns freedom after 10 years, his tablet bears the king's seal. These aren't exceptions. They're built into the system. Of course, power still matters. The wealthy have better access to legal help. The poor, less so. But there are advocates, scribes and temple elders who advise and sometimes represent those in need. One young scribe explains it to you, even a farmer has the right to be heard. That is what makes us a city, not a herd. One day, you're invited to witness a public trial. A man stands accused of stealing grain from a temple storehouse. Witnesses are called. One contradicts the others. The judge pauses, then orders the defendant to swear innocence in the name of Enlil. The man hesitates. That moment is enough. He is found guilty. Sentenced to labor in a public work crew for a full season. Justice, in this world, is about restoration, not just retribution. You notice how many laws protect property, fields, homes, livestock, tools. In a land of scarcity, resources are sacred. Theft, trespassing, and fraud are treated with severity. But so too are false accusations, corrupt officials, and neglect. The law aims not just to punish bad behavior, but to balance society, and beneath it all runs the deeper truth: law is a story. One told through symbols, repeated in courtrooms, written on tablets, performed in rituals. Kings declare themselves shepherds of justice. Temples dedicate hymns to order. Children grow up hearing tales of fairness and consequence. As dusk settles, you walk past a quiet chamber in a temple archive. Inside, rows of clay tablets rest on stone shelves, some cracked, some perfect. A scribe carefully records the outcome of a land dispute. He doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. His task is clear: preserve the decision so that no one forgets, and you realize, while empires may crumble, and palaces may fall, these simple slabs of clay may endure longer than kings. They are the bedrock of civilization, not because they build, but because they bind. Not because they impose, but because they remember. The wind changes as you travel northward, leaving the warm plains of Sumer behind. Hills rise slowly in the distance, and the rivers no longer meander lazily but surge with sharper currents. You've entered the land of shifting power, Akkad, where city walls are higher, the air taut with ambition, and a new idea pulses beneath every stone. Empire. You arrive in Agade, the capital built by Sargon the Great, and you can feel the difference at once. This is no mere city-state vying for space among others. This is a center of administration, military command, and imperial reach. Markets overflow with goods from distant lands: cedar from Lebanon, tin from the east, lapis lazuli from far beyond the mountains. Languages mix in the air like perfume, and banners bearing Sargon's emblem flutter from every corner. The dream of empire begins with a simple truth: unity is strength. Where once the cities of Mesopotamia warred like siblings, Sargon wove them into something larger, a structure bound not by fragile alliances, but by centralized control. His conquests extended from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, a reach previously unimaginable. Historians continue to debate the true nature of the Akkadian Empire. Was it a tightly run bureaucracy or a loose confederation enforced by fear and tribute? Some inscriptions claim Sargon ruled with divine favor, while others suggest local leaders retained influence. The archaeological record reveals a blend: regions taxed but not erased, languages mingled but not extinguished. It was both unity and tension, harmony and hierarchy. You visit an imperial granary where scribes track shipments of grain destined for soldiers far to the west. A commander oversees it, his voice sharp, his eyes calculating. The empire, he tells you, is a beast with many mouths. Each city feeds it. Each road connects to its spine. And the roads, that is something new. Straight and wide, some paved with stone, they stretch like ribbons across the land. Couriers gallop with tablets sealed in clay, their messages urgent: troop movements, weather reports, tax tallies. This is how the empire stays alive, through speed and communication. The further you walk along these roads, the more you feel the pulse of something greater than a city. In Agade's palace, you see images of Sargon, sword raised, enemies at his feet, the gods hovering protectively above. These are not modest portrayals. Empire demands image, and the king is not just ruler, he is myth. One tablet proclaims, I am the king who knew no rival. You understand the message, fear me. Follow me, remember me, but Sargon's legacy is not only war. You meet his daughter, in Hejuana, not in person but through her words, hymns carved into tablets and preserved with care. As high priestess of the moon god in Uar, she blended politics with poetry, theology with personal longing. She is the first named author in history. Her voice still echoes, powerful and raw. You sit in a courtyard and listen to a young priest recite her hymn to Inanna, lady of blazing dominion, clothed in radiance, crowned in battle. Her words are not just praise, they are persuasion, diplomacy, command. Even art has been woven into the empire's structure. Still, not all is solid beneath this mighty system. You hear whispers of rebellion in the southern cities, of taxes too high, of temples stripped for state needs. In the mountains, tribes grow restless. The empire's borders are long, and fragile, and then there is language. Sumerian still thrives in temples and schools, but Akkadian, a Semitic tongue, is now the language of administration and power. It flows more easily, adapts faster. You overhear scribes debating syntax in both languages, their clay tablets cluttered with corrections. For a moment, it seems like a competition of tongues. But in truth, it's a synthesis. Empire reshapes not only maps, but minds. One evening, you visit a town on the empire's edge. A former Sumerian city, now governed by Akkadian officials. The people speak both languages. The temple chants are familiar, but the banners are new. Children learn two scripts, two histories. And yet, they play the same games, eat the same flatbread, whisper the same prayers under their breath. The empire has not erased their world, it has layered over it. You speak with a soldier, young, proud, covered in dust. He shows you his rations tablet, his bronze spear, his charm against bad dreams. I serve the king of the four corners, he says. But later, as the fire dies down, he confides, I just want to go home. And so you begin to see the paradox of empire. It builds great roads, but those roads carry both tribute and unrest. It speaks of unity, but lives on difference. It carves its will into stone, but time, always, erodes. As dawn rises over the flat rooftops of Agade, you walk the streets once more. Couriers ride past. Priests chant. Merchants haggle. Somewhere, a child learns her letters. The empire still breathes. For now, but you know that nothing lasts forever. The floodplains remember every footprint. And already, a new storm gathers on the horizon. The wind howls across the open plains, rattling the reeds and kicking dust into the streets of once proud cities. You walk through Uar, now quieter than before. The ziggurat still rises, proud and defiant, but its edges are worn. The canals are shallower. The chants in the temples fainter. A slow unraveling has begun. And you have reached the end of a long road. The story of the first cities is nearing its close, but the lessons echo louder than ever. Change creeps like salt through the soil. The great rivers, lifelines of civilization, no longer flood as they once did. Some years, they rise too high and drown the fields. Other years, they don't come at all. Farmers despair. Granaries thin. A whispered fear grows in the marketplaces. Have the gods turned away? But the gods are not alone in their silence. In the north, new forces stir. Nomadic tribes with different tongues and gods of their own ride down from the hills. Some come to trade. Others to take. You meet a merchant from Mari who tells you, the world is shifting. No one stays in power for long. You feel it too, the cities fight to hold together, but the networks that once bound them now fray. Trade falters. Law weakens. Kings claim to rule, but their words carry less weight. Temples cannot patch the crumbling walls. Still, people endure. They plant. They write. They pray. Even as empire falls, the flame of civilization flickers stubbornly. Historians still argue about what caused the decline: climate change, invasions, overextension, internal rebellion. Most agree, there was no single fall, but a slow, uneven dissolution. Some cities vanished. Others shrank into villages. Yet nothing truly vanished. The knowledge remained, in stories, in tablets, in blood. You return one last time to the scribes' quarters, now dusty and half abandoned. A boy still sits in the corner, scratching signs into clay. His teacher is gone. The kiln is cold. But he writes. Maybe for himself. Maybe for someone like you, far in the future, and then, across the courtyard, a child sings a lullaby in a language older than war. Her voice carries, soft and sure, as dusk settles, you look up at the ziggurat, its shadow long across the earth. The same earth where people once dreamed of gods, of justice, of wheat, of cities. And even though so much is lost, you know something unshakable remains. We remembered, and we still do. Now, as you lie still and your thoughts drift like boats on a quiet river, let it all settle gently within you. You've journeyed through the winding alleys of UR, climbed the steps of ziggurats into the hush of the stars, traced the fingers of craftsmen shaping bronze, and listened as law and language were pressed into clay. You've stood among the first cities ever born, where human beings dared to organize not just their tools and trade, but their hopes. You've seen the weight of grain measured alongside the weight of justice, and the murmur of prayers rise with the smoke of ovens and offerings. You've walked among people who had never seen a wheel until one day it rolled by, who knew no writing until someone carved a sign to remember a promise. And now, everything slows, the rivers are quiet again, the fires have faded into soft embers, the tablets rest in darkness, but not in silence, because every city you visited still echoes. In the lights of today's skylines. In the patterns of streets, laws, and markets. In the way we live and remember and try. The first cities of humanity may be gone, but their breath moves through you, still, so before your dreams take hold, close your eyes gently, inhale, exhale, you have wandered far through ancient dust and brilliant thought, and now, here in the hush, let sleep find you like the soft current of the Tigris, flowing gently, endlessly, homeward. Good night.